shouldn't believe everything you read online? Well, that kind of goes double for stuff people post on Facebook about things like mask wearing rules. So before you hit share, let's get to the facts.
Does OSHA want to make businesses enforce this mask mandate forever?
No.
And I know we're all sick of Zoom meetings, but I think Oregon Congressman Peter DeFazio has pretty much reached his limit.
You please mute your microphones.
And in a completely unshocking development, it appears the sky is falling.
What is this?
Here's the story.
And what is this? I can tell you, sir, this is the story. I am Dan Haggerty. Who is this? Is the question that you would have asked for that answer. Hi, it's Friday. Man, what a week. How about Peter DeFazio with that? Mute your microphone. I want one of those. I need a gavel, I think. I think everybody should walk around with a gavel. We need one of those. Hey, anyway, I'm Dan Haggerty. I said that once already. This is the story that wants to hear from you. So steer the ship. Tell us where you want us to head, how you want us to cover the news, what you want to see covered. You'll see if you watch this show each and every night. We use a lot of your feedback and a lot of your questions to essentially assign a reporter and get people working on the content that you want to see worked on in this community. So all the stuff at the bottom of your screen right now that you see, those are the ways to get in touch with us. So you can use your email and email us at the story at kgw.com. You can reach me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all that different stuff. You can use Twitter as well and the hashtag HeyDan. One fun thing to do is to just search the hashtag HeyDan, and you can see what everybody else is talking about who watches this show. Maybe communicate with them too. We'll get a little community started here. In the meantime, this is the second Friday in a row that we've got some really good news for frontline workers. So you can now get the vaccine, frontline workers, starting on April 5th. That is, they moved it up. They moved it up 2 weeks ahead of the schedule that was already being moved up. In fact, it's just 10 days from today. Now, before you start tweeting at me and saying, hey, Dan, am I this essential frontline worker? Am I in that category? Don't worry. We covered all the eligible jobs last week. We got a clip. Let's play it again. Grocery store workers, retail workers, college and university workers, trade school workers.
Wait, hit pause for just a second. We're really making people sit through this again? We are. Okay, can we speed it up? Like 2 times speed at least.
And elected officials. I'm sorry to do that to you. I apologize. I can't believe we put you through that again. It was even worse with the squeaky voice. My goodness. I know that was pretty fast too, the list. You could slow-mo it if you'd like, if you didn't see your job, or maybe just use the internet. We put the whole thing up. All the eligible workers probably should have led with that instead, but it's on kgw.com right now. So double check, get on there, make sure that you are included. Also, I should mention, if you are 16 and older and have an underlying health condition, you'll also be eligible starting on April 5th. That same goes for people living in multi-generational households. Okay, let's do our daily check of vaccine doses. How many people have gotten the shot? We do this every single day. This is the count today so far in Oregon. Over 1 million people, 1,070,000 people with that first dose of the vaccine. About 3/4 of them have also gotten the second dose, but that puts us over 25% in the state of Oregon of people with at least one shot. In Washington, doing pretty well there as well. 1.8 million people with that first dose of the vaccine. This is as far as yesterday. They give us the count there every couple of days. As of right now, they have the 1.8 million. That works out to be about 24% of Washington's population. Now, let's turn to the big story. Now, the big story tonight is all about misinformation. This is something we've talked about, I don't know how many different times on this show. Misinformation about the election, misinformation about COVID or about the vaccine. All kind of different topics, but they all have about 2 things in common. Number 1, this misinformation mostly spreads on social media. And number 2, once that wrong information is out there, it is nearly impossible to put that toothpaste back in the tube. We're seeing that play out right now with the state rule about masks in Oregon. Melissa emailed us and said this: hey, a friend of mine on Facebook posted something about Oregon OSHA looking to make the mask mandate permanent with no expiration date here in Oregon, even in outdoor spaces and beaches and parks as well. This is an extreme overreach, in my opinion. Can you help shed some light on this, please? Of course we can. And I'm going to start by saying that that isn't true. Our Kristen Severance explains.
OSHA, or the Oregon Occupational Safety and Health Agency, wants to extend the COVID-19 related rules for masks, social distancing, and training in workplaces until the pandemic ends. That's turned into a lot of misinformation online about these rules lasting forever. Erin Corvin is the Public Information Officer for Oregon OSHA.
Does OSHA want to make businesses enforce this mask mandate forever?
No.
People have posted things like, "Here's the info to try and fight against OSHA and Kate Brown making the COVID-19 restrictions permanent. And I'm very concerned that they will never lift these restrictions, and we cannot allow OSHA to make these rules permanent." Again, OSHA says none of these statements are true. In November, OSHA adopted a temporary emergency rule to protect against COVID in the workplace. The rule required masks, social distancing, and training related to the pandemic. It expires in May of this year. Since COVID is not over, they want to keep the mandate going. To do so, OSHA wants to pass a permanent rule the agency will repeal when the pandemic is over.
Why not just extend this temporary rule instead of enforcing this permanent rule? Because I think people are just scared by the word permanent.
That's understandable. So under state law, we are not allowed to extend a temporary rule beyond 180 days. That's concrete, that's in state law, and we're following that.
Corvin said, don't take his word for it. If you read the proposed rule, the plan to repeal is written as part of the plan on page 2. They are seeing so many incorrect posts about the rule change. They put up these infographics trying to dispel misinformation, but it's not really working.
It's sad. It's unfortunate. I think what we've attempted to do is stay focused on our mission, which is advancing workplace health and safety for all Oregonians.
If you want to weigh in, OSHA urges you to do that. They are taking public comment until April 2nd. I'm Kristen Severance, KGW News.
Did you see this last night? I'm jealous I didn't get to see it with my own eyes anyway. Our sky lit up last night with this amazing sight. We got hundreds of emails, people from all over the place wondering, what was this, Dan? What was this, man? These streaks of light, were they meteors maybe? Were they aliens? Did they finally say, you know what, we should go down there. They look like they need some help. We interviewed an astronomer who said that it was parts of the Falcon 9 rocket re-entering the atmosphere. This, of course, is a theory backed by tons of evidence, but it surprised me that no one zoomed in on the images. So we enhanced the footage, okay? Let's take a closer look, and you can see that it is in fact hot garbage and trash, perhaps traveling from the far reaches of the galaxy in search of its true home, Portland streets and the wooded areas off of I-5. Welcome home, space garbage, but don't get too comfortable because we've been talking trash all week and discussing solutions to this city's mess, like what happens to all the stuff you recycle. So here's the quick explanation. Let's say that you recycle a Budweiser beer can. It goes to the sorting facility, gets piled up with other cans, and smashed into a block. Then they sell that block to a third-party company that melts it down and makes it into something else, most likely a can. If the can lived a good life, it comes back as an IPA. If it didn't, they fill it with Natty Light. That's a karma joke. But I wanted to know what happens to the stuff that no one buys. What if they put that bundle of cans together and nobody buys it? Does it go to a landfill? Does it go maybe to another country and fill one of their landfills? So I asked the DEQ, what happens to the material that isn't purchased? And what percentage of recycled processed material still ends up in a landfill somewhere in the world? They replied, generally, the facilities that sort the commingled recyclables have no problem selling all of the material they produce. I cannot give you any exact figures, they tell me. So, you see, the last time that they collected that type of data was more than a decade ago, and they found out that about 92 to 94% of the recycling that we put in the recycle bin gets properly sorted and sold to companies. You may be thinking, why don't they collect that data more regularly? The last time they did it was like 2009. I was thinking that same thing too. I'll let you know what I find out. In the meantime, here is what else I found out. Just out of curiosity, I asked, how much do they actually charge for those materials that they smash into blocks? And they sent me this list. Check it out. Aluminum cans cost 57 cents a pound. A ton of steel cans, 2,000 pounds, cost you $205. And a ton of sorted paper costs just $32, which is pretty affordable. And if I end up as your Secret Santa next year, it's going to be hilarious. Now, earlier this week, we told you about some bills that Oregon lawmakers are considering right now to put the burden of recycling back on the companies that make and use all of the packaging instead of it being on us, the consumers, to figure out what to do and what's recyclable and what's not. The big one right now, the big piece of legislation, is Senate Bill 2065. And if it passes, companies that make things like paper or disposable utensils would split the cost of recycling alongside taxpayers. Right now, it's all on us. The state would upgrade our recycling sorting facilities. It would create a statewide list of what's recyclable in those facilities. And it would ban the use of that 3-arrow recycling sign on items that are not actually recyclable. Well, now Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley wants to take that to the national level. He's got a new bill in Congress that would do a lot of the same types of things by shifting the cleanup responsibilities to big corporations nationwide. He said on Twitter, "We can't just recycle our way out of this. We need to reform to move to a efficient circular economy." This bill would provide badly needed national leadership to reduce plastic waste, reform our waste and recycling systems, and help us break free from plastic. We'll keep you posted and let you know where these bills end up. Now, I want to discuss an error that we made in a report last night about several people from our area facing charges related to the Capitol insurrection in D.C. on January 6th. At one point during that report, we showed a screenshot from a website that included the photo of one of those suspects. But that screenshot also included pictures of 2 other people who were not at all involved and were not at the Capitol at that day, on that day, and they weren't involved in any way. We should not have shown their pictures in that video for the story, and we are sorry for that mistake.
We've been doing a lot of trash talking on this show, and by that I mean literally talking about trash all over Portland. And one of our viewers wants to know, why don't we just add more dumpsters? And we're saying goodbye to the luckiest girl who reminds us that's what growing up is, saying goodbye to a lot of things. Sometimes it is easy, sometimes it isn't, but it is all right when the story continues.
These quotes we're showing today, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but we just lost a Portland icon. The beloved author Beverly Cleary died at the age of 104 yesterday. So we're remembering her throughout the show tonight. If you got any memories of reading her books growing up, maybe reading them to your kids, let me know. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. Does anyone actually like Zoom meetings? I mean, meetings are kind of a drag in general, but man, Zoom, when you have to deal with the audio and the video and setting up your computer and the lighting and all this stuff, and then, hey, people who get distracted and people who forget to mute themselves, it's a lot. All right, it is a lot, especially if you're the one running the meeting, like Oregon Congressman Peter DeFazio, who tried to lead a virtual House Transportation Committee meeting yesterday.
We're here today to talk about a 21st century infrastructure plan, rebuilding the nation's crumbling. Hello, someone's not muted. Got to get it together now? It's not too hard. We've done this enough times. You ought to be able to figure it out. Going to be resilient to severe weather events. Be resilient.
All right. Don't come through.
Will you please mute your microphones? Not too hard. I think maybe there's a way we can just shut you down.
It's not funny. I actually have to thank Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show for pointing this out. Okay, they ran that little clip on last night's show, but we searched through C-SPAN's website and we found the extended version of the clip. And yes, searching through C-SPAN video is exactly as fun as it sounds. Now, this reminded me of something that happened last summer. Maybe you remember it if you watched the show here in the Oregon legislature.
Also, the dairy people, I want ice cream. Wait a minute, not on mute. Jesus. God, you gotta make no mute.
Mr. President, I think we all want some ice cream right now. Unfortunately, the ice cream truck is not driving by my house.
I get it, man. I think Zoom meetings would be much more bearable if we all had ice cream. Maybe that should have been something we adopted a long time ago. Let's hope that in the next few months, we don't have to worry about Zoom anymore, and maybe it can all be in-person stuff. But in the meantime, I don't know, get out the Ben & Jerry's, or the Salt and Straw, I should say. Now, let's talk about something a little bit more serious. All right, homelessness in Portland seems to have gotten substantially worse during the pandemic. And I say seems because it's just a guess, really. We don't have an actual count. In fact, the last time that we counted was in January of 2019, and the count at the time was about 4,000 people. But that was more than 2 very long years ago, and the trend at the time was already headed upward, and that was before the pandemic. So whatever the numbers are now, it's safe to guess that they're not great, all right? They're probably not even good. There are ways, I think, to estimate, though, what the increase probably looks like, and we could do that by looking at California. LA County did a more recent count, and they found a 12.7% rise in homelessness throughout the county and a 16% rise in the city. That is massive, especially when you consider how many people are homeless in that city. And truthfully, it's probably a lot worse than that, considering that that count, while I said it was more recent, was actually done in January of 2020. So still more than a year ago, and still before the pandemic gripped the world. Homelessness is a nationwide problem, but if you look at the hot spots, there's nothing like the West Coast. Think of it this way. Based on the count from 2019, California had more than a quarter of the nation's homeless population. More than 1 in 4 homeless people in America live in California. And in Oregon, we have the exact same percentage of homelessness to population as they do. And the similarities don't end there. When the city tried to clean up homelessness, a homeless encampment in Echo Park, north of downtown LA, it turned into a riot. Officers fired less lethal rounds. Members of the media got swept up in the melee. More than 182 people got arrested. The crowd was protecting the camp there of nearly 200 people. The city offered to put everyone in hotels temporarily before things turned to blows, but that wasn't enough. Or perhaps really, maybe that wasn't what exactly they were fighting about, as the violence surrounding inequality continues to pop up in varying forms. Now, Ken emailed me and said, "Hey, Dan, there have been some discussions about garbage at homeless camps. I wonder why the city hasn't placed dumpsters at these camps. Give these folks a place to put their garbage. There is going to be garbage, so why not get ahead of the problem?" That's a great question, Ken, and you're definitely not alone in wondering about this. I got a lot of messages very similar to that before. We reached out to the mayor's office with your question, and it turns out it's something a lot of Portlanders have asked them about too. And the city has put large dumpsters near some homeless camps, but say they usually end up being used by the people with homes to dump things that they don't want. They also say some residents think that these large dumpsters will actually attract more homeless campers. Now, there are a couple of specific programs in the metro area to help solve this problem that I want to tell you. First, there's the city's one point of contact system online where you can report homeless camps. Before a decision is made on whether or not to clear that homeless camp, a group called Clean Start comes out and they offer resources to those campers and clean up garbage and other biohazards, things like that. They'll also hand out some blue trash bags for future use. Another option for homeless campers dealing with trash is Metro's RID program, which works pretty similarly to Clean Start. Nonprofits and other agencies, they hand out large plastic bags to campers and arrange pickups. RID also responds to illegal dump sites on public property throughout the metro area. So this all sounds well and good, right? But are you still seeing trash all over the place? I bet you are. Well, Metro's RID program has got more than 7,000 complaints about illegal dumping in the past year. 7,000. And they're weeks behind on pickups right now. This is particularly because Metro has stopped using inmates to clean up dump sites. Initially, they stopped using inmates because of the pandemic, but then they decided to stop the program as a whole because of racial equality and fair pay. And that has led to major lags in pickup times. The average response time over the past couple of weeks has been 42 days. We talked to Metro President Lynn Peterson last week, and she said they're hoping to triple Metro's cleanup crew from 2 to 6 this July. All right, keep your questions coming. Keep those comments coming, your concerns, even your complaints. We like those too, and I'll read a few of them when we finish the story. Next. Hi. I'm checking my messages because I got to read a few of them in a bit. But first I want to show you something else. Because we are dedicating part of tonight's show to remembering Beverly Cleary, who died yesterday at the age of 104. And I know a lot of you grew up reading her Ramona books, which actually took place in Portland's Grant Park neighborhood. Well, we went into the KGW vault to find when she actually took us for a tour of that neighborhood.
That's what happened when he took Ramona along. Nevertheless, he looked around for Beeze's little sister.
These children at Holyrood Elementary know Henry and Beezus and Ramona as well as they know the children in their own neighborhood. Maybe that's because those characters do live in their neighborhood.
Okay.
Well, my best friend lived there, and I spent many evenings there, and somehow I just pictured Henry living there.
Beverly Cleary created the character Henry Huggins, and she says Henry lives in this house on Northeast 37th.
It used to have a big cherry tree in the backyard, and I mentioned Henry falling out of the cherry tree and breaking his arm.
Beverly Cleary's childhood memories come from street corners in Portland, 28th and Halsey.
There was a man who lived there. He must have been Italian. He was a plumber, and he would sing opera into a wash tub for the reverberation.
And Klickitat.
Beverly Cleary actually lived a couple of blocks away from Klickitat Street, but the children in her books live on Klickitat because she likes the sound of the name. She says it sounds like knitting. Well, it's a street name that caught her readers' attention.
I've received a number of letters from children who said that they came to Portland or came through Portland on vacation, and they looked up Klickitat Street.
Beverly was 6 years old when she moved to Portland, a remarkable likeness of the character she named Ramona. Their life stories are similar too.
Reviews said I had updated my books because Ramona's father had lost his job and tried to give up smoking. Well, my father lost his job and tried to give up smoking in about 1929 or 30.
Readers tell Cleary that they relate to characters like Ramona, a well-meaning little girl who always manages to get into trouble.
The girl who lived over in that house was the kind of girl who always did everything right.
Beverly Cleary sees things Ramona's way too.
And I was a person who didn't always do everything right.
It was one of Cleary's teachers at Fernwood Grammar School who first predicted that Beverly would someday write books for children.
But I didn't try to write until I sat down and wrote Henry Huggins and sent it off, and it was accepted.
Cleary was an instant success. Since then, she's written 37 books, all widely read by children throughout the world, and right back here in the neighborhood her stories came from.
And that's how Beverly Cleary ended that chapter.
Pat Cruz,
Kids back in
News
those
8.
days, that would have been very...
What a treasure. So you might have heard, and if you haven't, well, I'm going to tell you now. We launched a newsletter, a weekly newsletter here for the story. It's got all the stuff you might have missed on the show if you can't watch every night. It's an easy way to subscribe. Just open the phone, camera phone right now, aim it at your screen. That QR code right there will give you a little link where you can sign up for the newsletter. It's simple as pie. Get on there. You can also follow us at thestory@kgw.com. Use the hashtag HeyDan or email thestory@kgw.com. I want to read one tweet that we got tonight. Hey Dan, can you find out the story behind the sudden announcement of the closing of the Children's Museum? I know, what a shocker today. I know we have a little story at 6:30 coming up, the news next with Laurel Porter, but we're going to continue digging on this. Stick with us throughout the weekend and next week. I know that people have a lot of questions about that and kind of what is the future for that space and everything, but what a shocker. What a sad announcement today to hear that was kind of a casualty of what we've experienced here over COVID. And the difficulties a lot of businesses have had. But that's the latest on that as far as we know now. It's Friday. It's the weekend. Have yourself a great one. I'll see you back here on Monday. Until then, that's the story.